Clarkson the biggest bellend in the world?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Right.
Okay,
so okay, outro. Insert the credits at that point for a humorous bit.
Yes. What's up with that bit in?
Yeah, obviously not with that bit. No. So as soon as you say yes, we'll cut straight to the outro for 4 seconds and then back again. Okay, obviously we need to have a bit more of an in-depth discussion than that. What do we mean by is Clarkson a bellend? Obviously we're not speaking literally, we're speaking figuratively.
Yes, also for non-British viewers, because how many views did we get on the last video? About 18? So
yeah.
Yeah, so for all one of you. For non-British viewers, bellend is...
Cock.
Yes, what he said.
Yeah.
And it's
very...
generally an abusive term.
Yeah.
In a kind of dismissive sort of a way.
Think visually if you need to understand exactly what the phrase means.
Yeah.
But, yeah, is he... Well...
Probably not really. I mean, kind of Stalin, Pol Pot. Generally kind of more of a bellend.
Exactly.
Whoever
but the
it
thing
is
is
in charge of ISIS, definitely a bigger bellend.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think when we say bellend, we're not necessarily referring to people who are evil.
Yeah.
They're just dicks.
Yeah.
They're just basically the kind of person that you wouldn't want to hang around with because they're a cock.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily strangling babies or setting fire to hospitals.
But what they would do is trip you over so you fell in a muddy puddle.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think it's more sort of we're saying kind of biggest bellend in the world because obviously it's one of those Clarkson kind of in the world things, and it's just a good thing. It just kind of is very pleasing to get that in there.
Yeah.
Because you then get a double kind of joke of basically he's a bellend and basically in the world.
In the world.
Stuart Lee always has one thing he said that I think makes Jeremy Clarkson a bit of a problem, in that kind of like, I think he said he's either an idiot or a genius because he's figured out the precise way to annoy me. And I think this speaks to the fact that you see Clarkson in some interviews and you see him speaking on subjects that aren't to do with cars or Britain or Winston Churchill, and generally kind of war and engineering and things like that. He's clearly a smart bloke.
Yeah.
He clearly knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it's a question of how much of a persona is Clarkson? Where does it start to blur? What are his actual opinions? Because he clearly has a lot of these sort of, he says a lot of these things as part of his shtick.
Part of his act, yeah.
That's right, it's his act, it's his persona.
Yeah.
He comes across as a reactionary, right-wing, anti-environmentalist, polluting, car-driving bellend.
Yeah.
Because it makes him money.
Yeah.
It's his career.
Yeah.
And it's a case of, well, exactly how much of it is really him and how much of it is just the act. I mean, I suppose one could find out from reading his columns or his books, but again, how much of that is still character.
It's like Al Murray's pub landlord.
It's like the pub landlord.
Yeah. And I think if you look at, if you kind of like older Top Gear compared to newer Top Gear, so kind of they are doing impressions of themselves now.
Yes. Well, I think ever since because obviously he was around in the older Top Gear days when you had
and he was the stupid one basically.
Yeah, Quentin Wilson,
Tiff Needle,
Quentin Wilson.
Yeah.
William
basically
Bullard
the people who went off to be on Fifth Gear.
Essentially,
which is still a sensible community.
And he was the silly one that basically made people laugh a bit.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, when they decided to relaunch Top Gear, he pretty much was the one who pitched the new format to them, and as far as I know, owns the format, which is why it makes him a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was basically kind of less about the cars and more about them as characters almost. Yeah. That's why it's kind of hard to completely hate him, because obviously it is something of a character in the same way that you can't totally hate Al Murray. You can basically be needled by the character.
Yeah.
You can basically find the character annoying and the fact that these people exist. But obviously underneath there's a clever bloke who knows what he's doing and is making money. The problem with Clarkson is the fact that I don't think his audience have a fucking clue.
No.
I don't think the people he mostly appeals to, similarly with Al Murray and again people like Ali G,
Yeah.
that the people that he's kind of, in a way, Clarkson is parodying these people and appealing to them in the process and making money off them in the process. But the trouble is, I don't think they realise that, and they take him seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with someone who basically has as big a voice in the media as Clarkson does. You know, he's on one of the biggest shows in the world. I mean, it's
and
got viewing figures.
It's on
It's
in so many different
exported.
countries. The format is on.
The UK version is aired around the world, and it has 300 million viewers,
That's
which
scary.
is insane. But the thing is, obviously, most of his supporters are kind of like, cheers for PM in this country. They're all very kind of like, they just don't get it. And the problem I really have with him is he clearly must know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's not stupid. The thing is, either he does know... No, he's got to know what he's doing. He just... How much does he give a shit? How much does he give a shit that he's having...
It. He probably doesn't give a shit. I think actually that is his
and that's the
persona.
thing. That's the thing that we should probably focus on hating.
Yeah.
Not the actual persona that is Clarkson, but the fact that the man that is Clarkson underneath it has created this persona and doesn't give enough of a crap that basically a lot of people take him seriously and have adversely negative opinions on things that they shouldn't have. Basically, because of him.
Said.
Yeah, because of what he does. There will be people who think kind of like, fuck the environment, fuck hippies, fuck people on bikes, run them over, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they will have those opinions because of him, and that's that moral kind of bankruptcy there that I think I have a problem with.
Yeah, and it's definitely a persona. It's definitely done for effect.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, as one of the most oppressed minorities in the country, a cyclist.
That's going to create a few comments.
Yeah, I have noticed that when they do let's run over all cyclists because they're all idiots, ha 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 stuff on Top Gear, I get nearly squashed the next day.
Yes.
And I know that's anecdotal and that might just be my viewpoint because I'm looking at it a bit more, but I do get an aggressive driver probably about once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And I can say that it happens more when...
in the wake of a particularly egregious Top Gear episode.
Yeah, and actually we know that they did a thing recently where they were trying to do kind of sort of public information films about cycling.
Yeah.
And... what's he called? Oh, God. James May. James May is a cyclist. He rides a bike.
Yeah.
So does Hammond. But yet May was still on the Clarkson thing of, well, the audience and they should be run over and they don't pay road tax and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So he was clearly just playing a character.
Yes.
And I think out of all of them, he is the least stupid.
James May is easily the least stupid out of all of them, and the thing is, I think he's also the one who has got more bloody questions to answer as to why he's hanging around with those complete dickholes.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's clearly smart, he clearly knows what he's doing. The thing is, he's got no excuse.
Yeah, he doesn't need the other two.
No, he doesn't.
When he goes off and does stuff by himself, it's generally pretty good.
Yeah, and he's likeable and intelligent and informative. And he's done some kind of slightly poppy science shows that kind of like that are sort of like accessible without being patronising.
Yeah.
So, he can clearly do what he should be doing, that he can clearly do the job. But obviously, it's that hanging around with Clarkson thing. He's got no excuse. He's like the intelligent kid, basically kind of like the power behind the throne almost at school, kind of like the one who basically kind of is just like waiting there, scheming, plotting, Machiavellian style, waiting for the king to do something stupid, whereas Hammond is clearly the bully zoik. Basically, he's clearly
basically
the
little kid who hangs around with the bully because if he didn't, then he'd get
beaten up. Yeah. And that's the
yeah. And Clarkson clearly thinks he's still at school, and he went to boys' school where kind of it's like the stick is named after what they called a new kid at his school.
Yes.
So he's clearly just never got over being in that kind of like roughy tufty, make me some toasty.
Yes, and the thing is,
kind of
I don't think he'd be anywhere near as cocky and as overbearing as he was if he weren't for the fact that he's tall. I think that's got a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
He's clearly taller than the other two.
And he does invest a lot into that.
Yes.
And it's always he's always kind of going on about Hammond being short. Hammond's not that short, is he?
Not, I
Seven?
don't know.
5'6", 5'7", something
Yeah,
like that?
he's not. No, he's not really that short.
It's kind of average height. It's just that the rest of the other two are quite tall.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm tall. It's not that difficult.
No. and it's also not that difficult to be tall and not be a dick about it.
Yeah. And you know, he doesn't even have to make the effort to walk in heels.
No.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, only briefly.
Yeah, well, mostly until he fell over and broke his ankle.
Yeah, that would be funnier.
Yeah, that would be funny. But yeah, and it used to be good. It's one of those programs that has overlived.
It's overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
It's gone on for too long, and it's kind of just rehashing the format. And the format is Last of the Summer Wine.
Yes, completely.
It is
absolutely Last of the Summer Wine.
And that went on for too long, and there's only so many times you can see Compo going down the hill in a bath and smashing through a fence.
Yes.
Before it becomes a bit kind of repetitive.
Well, before it becomes the cliche about what all of Last of the Summer Wine
going
is.
through a bath, going down a hill in a bath.
It's like, Last of the Summer Wine, that's that show where we went down a hill in a bath. It's kind of like, only one episode, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's just the fact that most of their schemes end up in that kind of stupid kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was a point when I quite liked Top Gear. It was probably around the 8th or 9th series, and it was around about the time, obviously, that Hammond had his accident.
Yeah.
And it was at the time they produced some genuinely good shows. I mean, that was the one where they built the space shuttle out of Reliant Robin.
That was the best thing ever.
Which was absolutely amazing.
That was one. I'll still occasionally go back and watch that on YouTube. I think that's one of the best things that I've seen on telly.
Yeah, I mean that's what that show should be doing.
Yeah.
It should be doing stuff like that because that is just fantastically quirky. It isn't kind of like, it doesn't demean anybody or anything, and it's just kind of like, seriously, can we make a working, kind of like rocket ship out of a Reliant Robin?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, and technically, until it failed to land properly, it did.
Yeah, well, it went up.
It went up.
Which is kind of like, it took NASA a long time to work out how to make rockets go up and not sideways and exploding.
Yeah, but then it just became horribly contrived and retreading the same thing over and over again.
And they started faking what they were doing. They started faking failing because they worked out that when they tried to do a thing and then they messed up, that was
more entertaining.
Yeah, that was funnier than actually kind of when they do a thing and they're successful. That is satisfying, I think. I really like the ones where they do that. So the one where they went across, they did the Three Wise Men bit.
Yeah.
And they went across the Middle East, which across Syria, which is, you wouldn't go there now.
No.
But yeah, I mean, is it their fault? Can we blame them?
Can we blame Syria on Clarkson? Sadly, we probably can't.
Damn.
I think it would be a bit flippant.
Also, where else don't we like? Can we make them go somewhere else? But yeah, the one where they went to, because they started off in Iraq, didn't they? And they were completely terrified, and you could see it, and it was real. It was kind of, that wasn't acting, and that was kind of, you can actually see the knobbishness of Clarkson there, because they made Hammond go first, and they were genuinely scared they were going to get shot at.
Yes.
So they were like, okay, well, if somebody's going to die, let it not be me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, go you.
What a gallant man.
Yeah, really. Yeah, he was always going on about kind of militaristic heroes. So clearly they all hid in the landing craft where they sent out the little guy.
Yes.
Well,
that's another thing. It's kind of like the idea, obviously, of so much being contrived. The whole kind of Falklands thing recently, the whole kind of being in Argentina and the dodgy Falklands plate.
And they're going, oh yeah, no, we totally didn't.
It's like we totally didn't. It's like. It's understandable. It's a kind of an understandable oversight that one could make. You don't always look at the number plate of a car, really. I mean, so many people, unless you own a car, you generally won't remember the number plate of a car, or unless you're in somebody's car often enough, you won't remember it. It won't have necessary impact. You won't make those obvious lateral jumps, and you could understand it. But the thing is, you could understand it if it wasn't bloody Clarkson and Top Gear, and they have a history of doing this shit.
Yeah.
They have a history.
They went to India
of either contriving or genuinely creating borderline international incidents of basically kind of upsetting someone somewhere foreign because it kind of generates,
we're British, so we win.
It generates publicity for the forthcoming show. And the thing is, I would be able to kind of buy it if sort of when the producer Andy Willman defends Clarkson and sort of says, no, seriously, we didn't. I would possibly be able to buy the producer defending it and sort of saying, no, we really didn't see it, we didn't think about it. If it weren't for the fact that it's Andy Willman, and he has a history of basically being, throughout all of this stuff, Clarkson's biggest enabler and apologist.
Yeah.
Whenever this stuff kicks off. Yeah, were they?
I think so, I don't know.
Right. But either way, in every time, Clarkson is in the papers for doing or saying something stupid on Top Gear while the series is being filmed, and they're prepping, in a way, kind of, it's almost like they're trailing the new series 4 months before the series even starts. They're just getting it ready in everybody's mind, sort of saying, hey, there's going to be something controversial in this coming series of Top Gear. Obviously, as the producer, his job is to basically make sure the show is successful. So obviously he's going to defend Clarkson to the hills. Yeah. He's never going to get rid of him, because obviously Clarkson is the cash cow and he owns the format. Yeah. And Clarkson could basically sort of say, fuck you, I'm taking my ball and going home. So Andy Willman has basically pretty much got to stand by everything Clarkson says and does. So while it is possible that some other people could actually, sort of not realise and go, holy shit, I didn't look at that number plate and think that could be misconstrued as a slight dig at the Falklands 1982 conflict or in Argentina. It could be seen as being insensitive if it weren't for the pricks involved. Yeah. It's the fact that it's Clarkson, it's the fact that it's Top Gear, and they have a history. They have a history of doing this shit. Yeah. So, call me Mr. kind of, cynical, but I don't fucking buy it when they say stuff like this.
I mean, they went to India and then just insulted the entire country.
Yes. As they always do.
As they always do. When they went across Africa, they were just idiots. When they went to America, they virtually got arrested every 5 minutes. They're just... that's quite easy to do in America.
While that was vaguely amusing that they decided to kind of paint each other's cars with stuff to kind of see if they could provoke trouble. Killed. But the thing is, that just smacks of what Top Gear does. It's basically contriving those situations, and you do wonder exactly how real it was to basically have a truckload of fucking hillbillies turn up.
I think it went a lot further than they thought it would. I think that...
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's possible that is kind of what happened, but sort of one wonders, obviously, with their track record.
Yeah.
How much of that was not necessarily kind of, staged, but at least they were trying to force the situation. Yeah. They were deliberately trying to kind of push it and see how far it would go, and it did go further than they thought. Yeah. Obviously, sort of, they don't show it, but you do hear it with them being pelted by rocks. Yeah. But cameras off, sound effects are cheap and easily available. How much of it is what is staged, and of course, everybody's always going to say, well, it's so like, it's all faking this stuff. It's like, well, everything's fake on TV. Yeah. Really.
Well, yeah, it's a reality. Ultimately it's a reality TV show, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It's with Chelsea or Towie.
Yeah, it's occasional car reviews crammed in.
Yeah, there's somebody going sideways in a Bugatti Veyron, because there's totally a point in reviewing that.
Yes, the one car that is basically, it didn't go into production and you're not going to be able to own. Yeah. Brilliant. That's handy.
Well, it did go into production, but you'd need about $1 million. You'd need to be a multi-millionaire to be able to afford one.
Yes, and they only made a limited number. That's right, it did go into production. Yeah. It's like the most expensive limited production car ever. Yeah. And while kind of you can understand them doing features on stuff like that, like when James May literally put his foot down and took it as fast as it would go. That's kind of genuinely exciting stuff.
Yeah. And that is genuinely interesting if you're looking at it from just kind of
the pure technical achievement of that car.
Let's see what we can make a machine, and let's see what it can do.
Yes, I mean that stuff is interesting. That stuff is fun, but it's like a lot of it just seems so horribly. I mean, like pretty much everything Clarkson does, it's designed to cause controversy or offend or upset, and so like people do get easily upset, but he's kind of going out of his way. Yeah. A little bit with that persona. It's just kind of like, right, let's see how I can annoy this week. It's like when he did his kind of like, public sector workers, should be taken out and shot in front of their children. Yeah. It's kind of like, that's clearly something that most people would never actually truly believe, and you would only say just because, like, well, it's been, I'm on TV, live TV, it's been 5 minutes since I've been in the papers, better say something offensive.
The thing is, I also saw that. Yes. I actually watched it. I don't know why I was watching the one show. I must have been ill.
Yeah,
lost the remote control.
Lost the remote control.
Kind
or the
of
will to live.
Yeah. had been stapled to the wall across the opposite side of the telly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did see it, and he was actually saying, what he said was that he was actually taking the piss out of the BBC balance thing.
Yes,
where
yeah,
they
it
always
was.
have to get somebody on who's going to disagree with whatever it is that's just been said. So, you know, Professor Brian's on Newsnight talking about how they've just found the Higgs boson. They have to get somebody on with a big beard.
Zelda,
going,
who's staring into a crystal ball.
Yeah, going, no it isn't, it's Jesus! They found the Jesus particle, and actually it's all not a particle, it's just Jesus, and actually there isn't anything. And the Pixies did it, and because they have to be objective, and so he was taking the piss out of that.
Yes, they have to be objective.
He was going, okay, well I had to give an opposite viewpoint, but he just took it too far, as he always does.
Yes. Yeah, but... Okay, it's understandable to want to take the piss out of the BBC's obsession with balance, but the thing is, obviously, they've gotten confused with sort of balance and offering completely stupid viewpoints. The whole point of balance is that you offer an equally valid but differing viewpoint.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you take somebody who is correct, and then to balance it, you get somebody who is wrong.
Who's completely wrong, but has a you know, it's totally opposite opinion. It's, you know, as you said, kind of like, you know, sort of you'll have a particle and basically a wizard. It's kind of like, no, that's not balance. That's stupid.
I would really like to see
that would be funny. It would be funny, but only very briefly before you realise that the BBC is just disappearing down the toilet. No, you basically, you need to have balance. So like to have balance, you basically sort of, you know, I disagree with you, and here's why, for equally valid, you know, kind of like rational reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is, you know, obviously with Clarkson he's going to take that to it, because he's basically, you know, just a lame comedian.
Yeah.
He's pretty much a right-wing comedian, something that they've actually complained about recently, the fact that there aren't enough of.
Yeah,
kind of
and
like,
clearly he is absolutely, he's almost doing that kind of Dennis Leary thing of kind of, well, I'm just going to drive around in a car and eat panda burgers.
And smoke and drink and drive.
because
I can, because fuck you and freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he is essentially a right-wing comedian dressed up as a TV presenter.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite scary.
It is quite scary.
That's actually more scary than being the biggest bellend in the world.
Yeah, you do. I mean, they had, because the whole thing was sort of Andrew Lawrence complaining about where are all the UKIP comedians. It's kind of like, well, that's the thing. It's not that they're being prevented from being on TV. It's the fact that they don't exist.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, comedians generally, you know, sort of like, they're human like anybody else. They'll have particular political leanings and viewpoints, and the fact that kind of like, if you're a UKIP supporter, complaining that there's no UKIP comedians around, it's kind of silly, because you're basically sort of saying, hey, I've just realised there's a lot of people who disagree with me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, where are all the people who agree with me? It's kind of like, well, they're in UKIP.
Yeah.
It's kind of like everybody outside of that circle doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, so where are all the UKIP comedians in the 1970s?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have
all the Tory comedians.
Yes, they're all old or dead.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few centre-right comedians, but the thing is, you know, they are thinner on the ground for very good reasons that I think I can't remember who, there's been articles obviously on it recently that explored that the reason you tend not to get particularly right-wing comedians is because comedians tend to travel. They're exposed to more people, more differing ideas, different people, different places. It becomes much harder to hang on to your prejudices and bigotries, which I'm not saying that everybody who's right-wing is prejudiced and bigoted, but the thing is, a somewhat narrow view of the world does tend to come with being particularly right-wing, because it's much more insular, much more in a kind of bubble.
And it's about fear a lot of the time, so actually probably people who are left-wing or people who are more open to doing things they haven't done before are more likely to go and see a comedy show.
Yes.
And go and see somebody they haven't seen before.
Absolutely. And I think that I would also throw in the notion that basically you tend not to get a lot of right-wing comedians because people who are ideologically right-wing tend not to have much of a sense of humour.
No, they're too busy being angry about stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly other people.
I mean, it's obviously it's a bit of a sweeping generalisation, but I think it's probably quite fair to say that on the whole, people who are ideologically left-wing can generally take a bit more of a joke about their ideologies and their
Yeah.
beliefs on the whole.
Yeah, I think
It's not a
people
hard
get-
and fast rule.
Yeah, I mean, people get very, because there's some people that I know who are on, it's kind of one mutual acquaintance on the very far left that we know, who we were kind of, got very affronted when I was making jokes about Stalin being a knob.
Yes.
Because if that's in your ideology, then
Yeah.
it's very hard to actually have a sense of humour about it. I don't know if we can really put that bit in, but hey, he won't watch it.
No, I won't watch it.
But yeah, and I think actually kind of right-wing people are much more entrenched because it is about I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes,
I'm big, you're small, I'm in
there's
charge,
much
you're
more.
not.
Yeah, there's much more investment. I mean, unless you're particularly on the far left wing,
Yeah,
you tend not to be as ruthlessly attached to your kind of ideologies than perhaps you were if you're. I think basically kind of like the kind of like attachment to the ideology becomes more fierce the more right you go. You don't have to be particularly right wing
yeah,
to have these kind of ideas inextricably linked with you as a person and take them more personally.
yeah,
So yeah, you tend to get them being much more affronted, I think, by stuff, which is why you get something like the Daily Mail. It's always so seething and
yeah,
angry.
and it's always angry and upset and scared about something.
Yes.
It's
Because obviously fear is obviously a predominantly right wing tool. I think it tends to be used more by the right wing to scare people into doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you don't necessarily have conviction or sort of reality or facts on your side, you've got to use something to convince people you're right, and more often than not it tends to be fear.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, if you look, we're right, well, this is the way we need to do things, and if you don't do things, then you'll explode.
Happen. Yeah.
So yeah, you tend to be much more kind of like sort of, and when that fear is then essentially used against them,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it all breaks down.
Yeah. And Clarkson is very much kind of he's almost like a gun lobby person,
Yeah.
but for cars.
Yes.
It's like, oh, the greenies are coming to take our cars away.
It's like, no, we're just saying that they should probably not be as planet killing as you want them to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it is possible to have completely green cars.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but
No.
sorry, what it does mean is you're basically not going to be, drive around in one that constantly goes all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like, and you do see people in those kind of cars stuck in traffic jams, and you can see them sitting there, and they got in it in the morning going, let's see how fast it goes round our track.
Yes.
And then it goes round it at about 15 miles an hour, which is not really worth the effort.
No, not even slightly. It's kind of like you're just going to be stuck in the same traffic we are.
Yeah.
The difference is it's going to cost you more in
Yeah,
petrol.
well actually you're going to be stuck in the traffic, I'm not, because I'm on my bicycle going faster than you.
Yeah. And I'm on bus lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, half my journey to work is bus lanes, so, I get there zooming past all the traffic. It's kind of like, it's taking you half an hour to get that distance, it only took me 5 minutes.
Yeah. Although the one time I did have to take the bus because my bike wasn't well, the bus got stuck in traffic.
It does happen, there's a couple of bottlenecks. Unfortunately, where we live, there's literally about, 17 different ways to get from your house, wherever you are, to wherever you work, and the trouble is they all ultimately at some point converge in the same place.
Yeah.
So no matter which way you go, you end up stuck by the same bloody traffic.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly designed. Well done, Plymouth. Good traffic planning there, dickheads.
It's because of all these people you get all these people in these ginormous four-wheel drive things that are about bigger than a house.
Yes.
With one person in.
It does. I was going to say, it's entirely different discussions, but it doesn't basically help that essentially, because of kind of like the whole Ofsted thing and this notion of league table of schools, no longer do you go like we would have done in when we were kids to the school that was closest.
Yeah.
You went to the primary school that was closest, then you might have gone to the middle school that was closest, and the high school that was closest. Now it's a case of, it's about choice. So you get to choose which school your children go to. And of course then there's everybody kind of screwing each other over for places. And most of the good schools are always kind of 14 miles away from where you live.
Yeah.
And so that means basically 10 times as many people on the road first thing in the morning driving, you know, sort of precious little snowflakes to these schools miles and miles and miles away.
Vehicles.
In heavily armoured vehicles. So, and that's the thing, the traffic round here is absolutely beautiful in half-term holidays in summer.
And in the summer,
It's wonderful. You can get to, you know, the buses turn up when they're supposed to turn up and they get to their destination on the time they say on the timetable, because there's no other bastard cars on the road.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it might seem kind of like just needless kind of whinging, but god damn it, get your kids to walk to school.
Yeah, really.
Or bike to school.
This is why they're morbidly obese.
Yes.
That's
it's like, seriously, if your kid's school is miles away, you have to ask yourself what you're doing. Really, why are you sending your kid to a school miles away? It's like, we had a decent enough education growing up going to the school that was closest. If your school is basically lacking in what is... Well, you had a shit edit? Oh.
Yeah, didn't work for me at all.
Oh, see, I think what you're supposed to do is, if basically you have a shit education, then what you're supposed to do is parents are supposed to kind of fill in the gaps. It's like, oh, they didn't teach you this.
Okay.
They didn't teach you this today. Oh, let me fill in that gap and I'll tell you what this is. It's like, oh, brilliant, thank you, Dad/Mum. You have completed my education. You have basically fulfilled your duty as a parent to basically kind of not palm me off to the state.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays
I just read a lot.
Yeah, nowadays good school essentially means a laptop for every child. It's like, fuck it, you've given them a laptop or tablet at home. It's kind of like, we didn't have a laptop and we got along fine, and now I feel old.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I was just thinking that laptop, we put a BBC Micro on your lap, you're going to have no needs.
Yes. So, is Clarkson a bell end?
He is a bell end. Is he the biggest bell end?
Is he the biggest?
Who's a bigger bell end?
Who's bigger? Yes. Who is a bigger bell end? Comments down below. Check out the Clarkson song, which is over there, which inspired this particular discussion. Check out our other stuff, which is over there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like us on Facebook, and download our stuff for free from the website. Bye.
Also, sorry, if you say to the answer, who's the bigger bell end? Well, you are. That's not funny.
No.
Just thought of that.
No, our parents have already described us as such.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.